Hello everyone! I've got something new for you all today. It's something that I've just invented, and to be completely honest, I think it'll really catch on in the internet world. Now, I don't have a name for it yet, but suffice to say, I'll be providing my input onto a topic that has already been explored by a previously created bit of video media. The piece that I'm covering is a video that was created by Bellular Gaming, who regularly covers material surrounding the Warcraft universe. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I recorded this video on a whim out of frustration of a delayed edit of another video I hope to have out real soon. So while this is a topic that I'm versed in, I am aware that not everyone will be, and unfortunately this video does not include a primer for those who are not up to date or are not already knowledgeable in the lore. I do apologize if that's not exactly appealing to you at this time, but like I said, I'll try and get out the next video as soon as I can. However, if you do enjoy this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more of me and whatever this channel is, and of course, check out, like, and subscribe to the source material if you haven't already. Without further ado, enjoy! Honestly, I can't believe I'm about to do this. I don't know what I'm doing here. Alright, whatever. I just feel like we're going to enjoy this, or at least I'm going to enjoy this, and no one's ever going to see it. So that's just what's gonna happen right now. I've been drinking. Shut up. I hate you all. Alright, let's do this. Okay.
It was only in Wrath of the Lich King that we in the Bronze Dragon Shrine, along with our future selves, witnessed that, well, Morazond and Nosdumu were in fact the same.
Correct.
A fairly massive moment. At the time, Chromie didn't believe it. But
and I wonder why. Doesn't she have access to that?
And this all begs the question, why did he turn? We would learn, of course, that Nosdumu was empowered by Aman'Thul, the head of the Titans.
No, I thought I had something to say there, but I don't. I mean, no, I mean... Isn't that so weird? Like, as far as, like, fans have been led on to believe, you know, it's like all the bronze dragons, like, pretty much know everything that's going to happen, that has happened, and what's currently happening. So isn't it a bit strange that Chromie wouldn't know, especially as, like, the main representative to the mortal races, how their leader goes crazy? No, it doesn't. But hold on. That makes complete sense. Oopsies. I've now completely forgotten his real name. Okay, I'm just going to say Murazond. If Murazond, obviously by that point in time had gone crazy, right? And he wanted to prevent something that overwhelmed his mind from corrupting the rest of the Bronze Dragons, wouldn't he hide it from the rest of the Bronze Dragon flight so that they could continue to accomplish their duty? I guess that makes sense.
He was granted power over the Time Ways, but to prove the limits of his power, Aman'Thul also showed him his own true death.
That's such a weird thing, isn't it? Like, to know... I mean, like, this is a common, like, hypothetical that, you know, people give all the time, you know, say, what would you do if you knew the time and place of your death and the circumstances and all that crazy stuff? How would you live the rest of your life, right? Now, it's like... What's interesting about this one, right, is that he was obviously shown this. I mean, you would assume that he was obviously shown this at the beginning of the charge of his duty, right, his responsibility. So why does it take so long for him to turn to Murazond if he's known from the very beginning how he's going to die? Unless... for that entire time, he's actually been looking for a way to avoid it. Right? And then just at some point in time, he just gave in to despair and was like, nope, that's it. It's done. You know what? If following the plan is going to lead to my demise, then obviously screw up the plan. That's literally the only thing I have left, and we'll just do that. That seems to kind of make sense.
Than we've realized. First, our bearings. The scope of WoW's lore and Azeroth's place within it has shifted a bit over the years. From those early days of defending the world, to learning, no, this world is actually very, very important, to learning, oh, it's actually a Titan, then to learning it's the final Titan, and then that maybe it's...
okay, sorry to keep pausing it, but like that felt kind of obvious, you know, personally for me, at the very least. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be exposing myself just a little bit, just because I have just a tiny bit of knowledge in Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know a lot. I've never actually played a session or anything like that, but like you can see where there are some parallels in the universes of Dungeons and Dragons and World of Warcraft, which shouldn't be too surprising for those who know a lot about World of Warcraft, considering that I guess you could say Vanilla WoW back in the day when it first came out was largely based around tabletop games. That's the reason why they even had things like rolling systems. But anyway, in the fact that there are planes that all kind of intersect in a sort of Venn diagram state, with Azeroth being in the middle, in at least the context of World of Warcraft, where all of the elements kind of come together and then they form the world that we live in. But that's actually quite similar to Dungeons and Dragons with the elemental planes that they have. I don't know exactly if that's what they're called in Dungeons and Dragons, but there are many planes in Dungeons and Dragons ruled by, I think, deities or whatever the heck. Whatever, they all have their circumstances. And they all intersect in the world that most players begin in. And when you start to see those parallels, all of this makes a bit of sense, you know, that we could have, and, well, hold on. Maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit here. No, not contradicting, but maybe I'm just leaving some data out. But either way, it's like it just made sense that Azeroth was very important, could very well have been, could have had a Titan soul in it, considering how it pretty much seems to be kind of a keystone to the intersection of all these different influences, all these cosmic influences, never mind just the worldly influences of like the elements and such, but like the intersection of like the realms of death and life and order and chaos and light and void. You know, I mean, that wasn't much of a development for me, but I can see how those that might not have had that background knowledge in might have how that development might have thrown them for a loop a bit.
More than that, or just really...
Also, I'm definitely drinking faster than I should be.
Powerful. So it's with this in mind that we've got to think about the loose thread in Nozdumu's story. This is a thread that Blizzard can weave into the game right now, especially with the Bronze Dragonflight having a pretty significant story in this new expansion. This is, in fact, how we can tie together the old gods, the doomsayers that appeared in the Legion, events of the Shadowlands, and a whole lot more.
What loose thread are you pulling at here?
Melkor's escape through the Door of Night was a looming thing that could maybe happen in the plotline of Tolkien's Legendarium. Something similar.
Oh, okay. I was like, for a second, that confused me so much. Oh, I clicked on something. Okay, anyway, that confused me so much. Who the heck is Melkor? Was that wasn't in our universe? He meant that was all from Lord of the Rings lore? Is it rude of me to refer to all of Tolkien's works as just under the umbrella of Lord of the Rings? That might just be a bit of a small story within his universe, but that's not a name that I recall from World of Warcraft.
Plus,
let me know if I'm wrong.
What's coming is today's sponsor, HelloFresh.
Oh.
Look, I just can't go on eating processed food and wasting my money on delivery apps. It really adds up. And that's why I use HelloFresh.com, where the code Bellular65 will get you 65% off plus free shipping. Now,
depending on what the base price is.
Kit service is absolutely killer. It is one of the easiest ways to just directly improve your quality of life. Because
well, he goes on about this. I just want to let you guys know, if you haven't already checked out Bellular before, he is just fantastic. And checking out the live streams, or even just the clips of the live streams of him and Matt talking about, like, not even necessarily just WoW, but like the game industry as a whole. So enlightening. So enlightening. I absolutely love it. I super recommend checking them out. Oh god. Oh god. Super recommend checking them out. They're fantastic. Absolutely great. I watch them almost constantly. Like, in my free time, if I'm not keeping up on
is
on
gone, and
just
because you get what
my
you need,
weird flights
there's
of
no food
fancy,
waste. There's no
watching
random
educational things on
ingredients
YouTube, or
lying
just
around
fun
cluttering
things,
up
you
your
know.
home,
Then
making
I'm usually watching
cleaning
these
that
guys
sort
for
of
sure.
thing
They're
far
fantastic.
easier. They're carbon neutral, ship recyclable packaging. Overall, they cut food waste by 25%. So versus fast food, HelloFresh is cheaper, faster, and so much more healthy. Nutritional info is, of course, posted on the recipe, so there's no faffing around calculating your macros.
Oh, that's
which is dead
fantastic. I
handy.
love that.
So
All
between
right.
my work here and my partner's
That's
very
really quite
hectic job
convenient.
also running her game studio,
Maybe I'll just
we're
keep
both
that down a
super
little
pressed
bit.
for time.
But no, that's
And that means that HelloFresh
that's
is
a
really
bit of
good for our
convenience you
quality of
don't,
life. So
I mean, I
check
wouldn't
them out
expect
yourself
companies
at
to
the
do,
link
but it's
below,
really nice
with
that they
the
did
code
that.
Bellular65 will get you 65% off. So,
Bam,
thanks,
perfect.
HelloFresh.
There you guys have it. You're interested in that? You have trouble with keeping your nutritional balance, if you will. Or you just want a bit of extra convenience without the hassle of having to worry about how it affects your health and wallet negatively. Check it out.
In the End Time Dungeon, we travel to another timeline,
Right.
far into the future.
Yes.
One where we fail to stop Deathwing,
Right.
where hope is utterly dead. There we find him, Morrizond. The Titans gave Nozdormu a
Oh,
vision.
wait, did I get that wrong, or have I just forgotten? Or is that the result of me just drinking? We're 3 minutes into this and I'm interrupting this too much. I'm sorry. I will let this play a bit more. I didn't realize that this was all set in the universe where everything got too far. How does that affect everything? Hold on. Does this become an inevitability if this is a universe in which Deathwing screwed everything up? That seems to that seems to... That's a bit of a butterfly effect, isn't it? Where it's like, we know that the cataclysm brought... I say cataclysm, I mean the events after the actual cataclysm, which was just Deathwing waking up. The events following, the... What's it called? What Ultraxian calls it something. The Hour of Twilight, right? Like, after Deathwing accomplishes his goal, right? You could probably assume that something bigger happens afterwards when there's no more defenders of Azeroth left to actually protect it. Because Deathwing's kind of, well, kind of went all World Destroyer on it. So is Morrizond really an inevitability at this point in time if Azeroth's defenders are still around to potentially stop the following possible worldly extinction event or worldly corruption event? You never really, we don't know what's really coming up ahead of here, but whatever is worse than the Cataclysm and the Hour of Twilight, event that was supposed to occur. After that, if there are people that are capable of stopping that, is Morrizond really an inevitability?
Vision of his own death to humble him. Now, we believed that the old
I'm
gods,
sorry, I
very
totally
likely
screwed up. I
Miss
don't know how the reset
Morrizond,
sentence went.
Far into the future.
Okay.
One where we fail to stop Deathwing,
Yeah.
where hope is utterly dead.
Right.
There we find him, Morrizond. The Titans gave Nozdormu a vision of his own death to humble him. Now,
That's
we
what
believe
that
the
was the
gods,
whole goal,
very
just to humble him. Okay, you know what? I don't know. I don't know about that one. I mean, it's very possible if we consider the amount of direct parallels that the sort of pantheon of order that they have in World of Warcraft is, the direct parallels to like the Greek or Roman pantheon. And then we kind of do a little bit of like reaching here to assume that just like the Greek and Roman pantheons, that they all had pretty major flaws to them that would made them very human-like in personality. Maybe a mistake like assuming that showing someone's death would humble them after giving them so much power, could make a bit of legitimate sense, from a character point of view, but but I personally would never think that after bestowing someone so much power to control time, of all powers to control time, that showing them their death would humble them. I feel like that would be more of a temptation, like, aha, you can control time, but here's when you're going to die. It's like, well, I mean, can I just manipulate everything to prevent that? I feel like that, I don't know. I feel like that's a bit of a logical oversight, I think. Whether or not that was like a pure oversight of the developers, or whether or not that was meant to be more of a, what do they call it in literature? A fatal, is it a fatal flaw? Fatal characteristic? Something like that. Either way, is yet to really be known. If it at all will be explained, but yeah, I think that's a bit of an interesting interpretation.
Likely N'Zoth somewhat tricked him into believing that he could subvert that death.
Right.
So
exactly.
this timeline exists because he chose to cheat death. If that's his only motive, then actually his dialogue doesn't really line up. Or does it? Well, let's get into that. If he saw his own death, then he would have seen us kill him. And that would mean he would do whatever he could to avert us killing him. So
that's also interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if I should pause it now, just because obviously I just went on a tirade that lasted minutes just to have Bellular pretty much sum up what I had just said in seconds, because he's a lot better at this than I am. But we had, what's her name? It's not, is it Elisand? Whichever the penultimate boss that we fought in the Nighthold in Legion, she made it blatantly clear that events that we directly interfere with tend to have an air of chronological obscurity to it, in which that those that can see timelines kind of no longer have the ability to determine what is actually going to happen once we start screwing with it. So, if they're going to keep with that theme canonically, then I'm very curious to see where he's going with this.
Certainly not fighting us. This is where my efforts broke down, right? Piecing this together. Only for it to fall right into place. Because Chronicle 3 suggests that Morazon's death is rote, that it is going to happen the way that it happens. Okay, so Nozdormu might have seen us kill him, meaning that the end time dungeon is his end. Now the thing is, we have the beginning of this character's story, we have the end of this character's story, therefore the mystery lies in what we don't have but can infer, what we...
I always had a question about that one, particularly. Was that... Okay, since this is only... Okay, we're pretty much assuming that Murozond is only, like... I can't say just one, like the Murozond route of Nozdormu was just one path. I mean, it could happen in, I guess if we're talking multiverse-wise, in infinitely many amount of pathways. But if... I never knew, quite frankly, if Nozdormu? Is there just one R that I need to find in there, whether it be the Nor or the door? Or is it two? Nozdormu? No, that doesn't right. Nozdormu? That doesn't sound right either, but I think it's Dormu. Okay, anyway. I've lost my place. Hold on, give me a second. Right, I never knew if Nozdormu was always supposed to turn into Murozond all the time, every time. And that's just where he ends at the end time, because, just the fact that he can kind of travel after going so far in the future and then coming back, that's where his end is. Or if it's literally just one or an infinitely many, but obviously there's also an infinitely many positive routes that he went. If that's just where the path of Murozond just gets cut off and that's the end of that threat. Not to say that we can't see in the future he could have in his pathway of going forward in the future before he turned into Murozond could have gone back to ways that are farther in the future to screw up things along the way. And then we just get him at the very end where he was going to do things, where he was going to do his last action, maybe not his last action, but where we finally just curtail everything at the end times dungeon. I think I made this more confusing for anyone trying to listen than... Yeah, I made this worse for you guys. I'm sorry. I mean, I think I kind of made this a bit more sense of my... I think talking it out loud made it easier for me to understand, but I probably screwed up everything for everyone else. I'm sorry about that. Just ignore that.
Can figure out. So let's go back into the game.
The end time, I once called this place. I had not seen by then. I did not know. You hope to what? Stop me here? Change the fate I worked so tirelessly to weave?
That's the first thing that he tells us.
Yeah.
That he did indeed call this place the end time, but clearly he doesn't really think that now. And this kind of confirms two things. First, he saw a timeline in which the end time happened, thought it was truly the end, but then found out there was something far worse. Or he just quite literally saw this moment as his end time. But
as
either way,
his end time?
Something changed his mind. And that something is the true end time.
Right, that's what I had been assuming.
You crawl unwitting like a blind, writhing worm towards endless madness and despair. I have witnessed the true end time. This is a blessing you simply cannot comprehend.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gosh darn it. We're only 6 minutes into a 21-minute video. I gotta stop this. Okay. All right. I'll just let him continue, but it seems like with madness and despair, that's pointing more towards the void.
Okay. The true end time.
And he was just trying to stop us. It was like a mercy killing before what happens.
Void is pretty much consuming all of Azeroth. In comparison to the true end time, that is a blessing. Now, we know that he was manipulated by old gods, almost certainly N'Zoth, who clearly used the trauma of him seeing his own death as an opening. I mean, if we saw the moment of our own death, it would drive us a bit mad, wouldn't it? But clearly...
See, there's that argument again that I was talking about. Whether it's up to you whether or not you think that, seeing the moment of your death would cause you limitless despair as you realize your powerlessness to stop it as you approach your inevitable end. Or you take the path of just making the most of your time, to make the most of it and see, how much positive impact you make in the world, or anywhere in between, whether or not you just engage into hedonism and just do whatever you want to have the most worldly pleasures you can before, well, it all comes to an end. I mean, that's kind of up to you. But anyway.
Something more. And this is especially clear in a modern context.
6 seats at the high table. 6 mouths that hunger. 1 will consume all others.
I knew he'll explain it, so...
N'Zoth
6 seats, that's
this,
interesting.
And time, of course, proved him right. So
oh my god, the 6 seats at the high table! I just got it! I mean, it was probably just like it's the 6 planes that surround, all of those influencing elements that I was talking about at the beginning around Azeroth.
Functions of death in this big attempt to control the realm of every cosmic force. He wanted to lord over reality and, as we would find out, stop what was coming.
Wow.
Now, as much as we all sighed at that whenever Zovaal said it,
a bit.
It is not an absurdity given what Morozond previously said during the Cataclysm. That the end time that we fought so hard to prevent in that expansion was itself preferable to the true end time, the thing that Nozdormu had seen. What Morozond
oh my god, you guys can hear me moving my bottle around. I just noticed that. Yes. I'm so sorry if that's been distracting you guys this entire time. I will try to prevent doing that, but it's really just kind of idle hands, as I watch this. I don't really do reaction videos. My hands are usually so much more busy.
Now, what is it that drove him mad, that turned Nozdormu into Morozond? Was it seeing his own death, or was it seeing the true end of things? And the idea that Zovaal would want to stop this, that Void would want to stop this, that actually is completely supported in the lore. Right? That this end is so horrid that everyone would want to stop it. That is supported in this line. And even the darkness howls for the light it once despised.
Oh, wow. They did say that in those stupid little pamphlets. You know, oh god, I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. I'm gonna mute this. Okay, I sneezed so hard my headphones fell off. Alright, I'm definitely glad I muted myself, but I think I screwed up a bunch of things. I think I hit my keyboard. I really hope I didn't do anything crazy. Okay.
Whatever's coming, it is bad on a scale that is hard to fathom. And the death of Morazond, way back in the Cataclysm expansion, pretty much more than half the game's life ago, that is the place where the first seed was planted. Whatever this is, Azeroth, of course, is the key.
We're talking
Old gods
narratively the
wish
first
to
seed?
corrupt Azeroth.
So I feel like that's kind of more like the... It's kind of like the last seed. It feels a bit more like the Hail Mary play. I guess if you want to talk about it from like a chronological standpoint, not from how players experience it, but probably from like the standpoint of how events probably went. We went so far into the future, failed, you know, a couple skill checks, if you will, to prevent the real end from happening. And then a Hail Mary played by the Void, who sees many possibilities, said, "You just, yeah, you send Murazon back and see if he can't stop all of this from happening by ending the world with a cataclysm." That's a good point. That was a point in which you could possibly pull that off and just end all this, because there's absolutely no way we can win at this point. You know, it kind of feels more like that. Although from a narrative point of view, in the way that players handle it, experience it, and the way obviously that storytelling just kind of happens, you could say this was the first seed. It's the first seed that we've encountered that lets us know there's something big on the horizon, and it might be on a scale that we can't quite comprehend. Which brings up a little bit of an issue, like a potential issue, when you just consider just how looking a bit more meta from like the outside point of view of how players handled Shadowlands, our first real expansion into the cosmic unknown. You know, normally it's been cosmic influences that affect us, rather than us going to the cosmic influence and saying, all right, cut this out. But we didn't quite handle Shadowlands very well. I can't say we didn't handle Shadowlands very well. It's much more like Shadowlands just wasn't well handled. So it makes you really wonder, because apparently players might not handle the proactive approach of going to these other realms to take care of business, how they might be able to spin a story in which being a more reactionary force, and how all of these influences that will obviously be coming at us now, how well they can tell that story. Or if they might just force us to once again be proactive and then just hopefully handle the game better moving forward. We'll find out, unfortunately.
Her powers to usher in their masters, the Void Lords, these mysterious beings somewhat outside of the universe that we've known of for quite some time but don't really know a lot of details on. Now, they clearly know something bad is coming.
Oh, that was the chart, by the way, in case you were wondering. That was the chart that I referred to, where you can kind of see all the, well, they have a bit of an angle on it, but you can see, like, the spheres, and you can't quite see it, but in the middle is Azeroth, right there. And you can have some minor, like, these are, like, the great, like, spheres of influence of, like, you can see Death right there, and then this is Void, and that's Order, which would mean, obviously, that life is up here. Life is up here, light is right there, and chaos is up here. And then you have like the minor realms of like the elemental planes as they affect Azeroth in the middle. If I remember this chart from memory, well, but yeah, you can look up graphs on the D&D planes of existence and how they very much resemble each other.
Don't really know a lot of details on. Now, they clearly know something bad is coming. Wishing to use us as instruments of his will, N'Zoth says, "You are indeed the ones I seek, the ones to turn the tide." Blizzard have since teased that just as mortals go somewhere when they die, so too do old gods. So, in the Battle for Azeroth expansion, we passed N'Zoth's trial with Unat, we freed him from his prison. I mean, in two ways. We did that by defeating Ashara, and some would even say that by killing him in the end, we just made his essence go back to where it would always go, meaning that he's now
Void.
free from Azeroth. And then, of course, we defeated...
If you guys don't know that, just a brief recap, you know, it's like the Void Gods can't interact with Azeroth directly, like a lot of the other great cosmic influences can. So they send their agents or create new agents in our realm, like the old gods, or just try and recruit us directly to assist them for their deeds. Although the Titans, you know, as far as I remember, the Titans kind of trapped the old gods on our planet, on Azeroth. After they had already infested the place and defeated them, they trapped them here because they realized killing an old god creates quite a bit of issues. You can find lore on that one, on that topic specifically. But yeah, so I guess we did kind of do him a bit of a favor by killing him and possibly sending him back to the Void so that he could have a bit more mobility moving forward with all of his plans and how he serves the Void Gods.
Death, which was perhaps the thing
Void
Void
Lords.
was afraid of. Nice. Then light, as shown in Zira, in Legion, and in AU Draenor, it ultimately does have a domineering tendency. You're with them, or you're against them.
That was a shocking
Much like-
moment. Wasn't that a shocking moment for everybody? Like, it was a bit like, it was one of those things where it's like, you know, as denizens of Azeroth, you know, whether for better or worse, whether or not you agreed with it or not, light was always seen as such a positive force. And, you know, you can see the parallels in real life, you know, as to how every force, whether it's used or your experience towards it, you know, as long as there's a bit of power, it can be used for good or evil. Seeing it used in a way that we could see as subjectively evil by a very creation of the pure force that we embody and personify, you know, was a bit it was shocking, you know. I don't know the right word to use specifically here, but it just cognitively, it was
Like with Order.
something.
Of course, they're ostensibly our allies, you know, Amanthul and his buds, but they would obliterate a whole world full of sentient, lovely beings without a second thought.
Yep.
As shown with Algalon
Good and evil,
in
like we
Wrath
just
of
said.
the Lich King.
You know, all power
So
can be
yes,
used for good and evil.
obviously Order
Subjectively,
too wants to
based off
control
of, you know.
Azeroth.
Yeah.
So yeah, really everyone wants Azeroth. She is key in almost everybody's plan, and something horrendously bad is coming. So let's make these pieces fall into place, starting with the Doomsayers of Legion. These were just these crazy crackpot theorists who appeared in the streets.
And they said a
handing
lot
out
of things that
pamphlets.
branched over a lot of like
And
different
they
topics
appeared
too.
in and around the same time as the Chronicle project began, and that's where we really see Blizzard place all the roots for their cosmology and try to like build out and solidify what ultimately is this new era of Warcraft's lore. As the Legion invasion loomed, they took to the streets. The Doomsayers had a common theme, that Sargeras was good, that he would set us free from torment. And then we get to this pamphlet. The end of all things. The crooked serpent with no eyes is watching from the endless sky. Forked tongues flicker through the black pits in dead stars. The veil between dream and dreamer slides away like skin from bone. And even the darkness howls for the light it once despised.
Right. Oof. Honestly, these are... God, I have such a monkey brain. I can't figure out these riddles. You know, you can kind of see things, dream and dreamer. Maybe that's like the Emerald Dream in the life realm or something. I don't even know what to make of a an eyeless serpent. I don't know. Bellular, help me. Save us. Save us from
Heavy
ourselves.
stuff. Now, of course, I believe this passage describes the end time that Morzond saw. It fits perfectly, I think. But beyond that, there's some more meaning. The Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, right? It's the basis of the Old Testament, and it makes reference to a
Tanakh, by the way, I'm trying to remember this, is the term for 3 different books, in case people are just wondering. It's the Torah, then the end is Ketubim, I think. What's the... Not... I don't remember what the middle is, but I think that's their book of songs. I can't remember.
crooked serpent, which essentially represents uncreation, sort of that which exists but not by God's will. So whatever the ultimate end is, I think this crooked serpent line is certainly referring to it. I mean, come on, crooked serpent with no eyes, like there's fairly clear imagery serpents are in many of the great human stories.
I'm sorry, I just had to stop for a second there. That's amazing. I mean, I'm not... Okay, maybe not amazing. It's more like that kind of threw me for a loop that even... it's like he obviously, pulled upon the same thing that I was just saying that I don't know what that could possibly be a reference to. And I was kind of looking for Bellular to tell me, and he didn't know either. That's a bit disconcerting.
From what we've seen, Azeroth is of course central to the plan of every force. Light and life have seemed friendly, and then there's Order, who we work for, but kind of helped take out of action at the end of Legion.
I mean, that's not too surprising. A lot of the races on Azeroth were created by, not necessarily like created purposefully, by the Pantheon of Order. But, like, for example, the Dwarves, the Vrykul, and then by the Vrykul, you could say also humans for that matter, and the Gnomes, They were all originally Titan constructs before they were cursed with the curse of flesh by the old gods. But it's like it would make sense that like those races at least, would trend more towards the sphere of order than anything else.
Threatens, Death and Void's plan, but of course we took them out. There's Void, who he defeated for Zovaal, and then there's Death, who, let's be real, is also a smart cookie. We defeated Death for Void. It's plans within plans, all the way down. Of course, they all involve Azeroth. And per Morzond,
you could just hear that bit of
the end time where Void
resentment towards the storyline there. Not to say that it's not deserved,
he was
but
hurt. He was troubled. He was manipulated, betrayed. He was not blessed with knowledge. No, he was cursed with knowledge that nobody is prepared to hold. So here are his final
I completely agree.
You know not what you have done, Amenthul. What
oh my god! I've heard that so many times thinking about that, and I always assumed that was directed at the players, saying that you don't know what you've done, you've killed me, you fools, you mortal fools. Is that directed at Amenthul? Like just a last cursing of Amenthul? It's like, what have you done, Amenthul, by you idiot, by showing me this and causing me to do things that I've done?
I believe that he saw what Zovaal saw, the true end, the worst outcome. Zovaal hated the First One's design, and there are clear critiques, right? Mortal lives, just put through the system, all that suffering and misery. But few have thought of it like Fareem. When Zovaal is defeated, Fareem stumbles upon a horrible realization. Initially, he senses a fracture in the First One's grand design, a fracture caused by Zovaal, imperceptible but potentially catastrophic. Indeed, denizens of the Shadowlands even see the Devourers as a literal sign of the end times. He prays the First One saw Zovaal's final...
The Devourers were such a poorly expanded upon feature that, like, storyline developments like that, they feel so artificial. They feel displaced, like just kind of ad hoc, just stapled on to the storyline. And I mean, there's been evidence, I've gotten my evidence most from Bellular, obviously, but pretty much alluding to the idea that there was supposed to be much more content about the Devourers, where they came from, what their purposes are, even potentially another raid tier that was supposed to happen somewhere in Shadowlands, but that had just gotten cut from it. But it's like, it feels like a bit of, I don't know, I'd be concerned about cutting content that very much has to do with the future of the game to save the current game. I don't know what exactly, like, Shadowlands didn't perform well, and there's a bit of triage that needs to be done in a panic situation like that. Maybe it was worth saving the game immediately, more than it was worth setting the foundation for a better storytelling experience going forward, or maybe they're just planning on, at least at some point going forward, to rehash what Devourers are. But if they just continue forward as if, players should understand what Devourers are going forward and what they mean to the storyline implication-wise, then I think they might run into another issue going forward.
Malevolent act that they've put measures in place. And then a horrible truth dawns on him. Unless their design was never meant to endure. And that is the possibility that haunts me.
Whoa, what?
Okay, that's pretty rough.
Like, it was meant to be a stopgap issue? A solution?
End that Morazon spoke of. So, is that end?
Oof.
Is that...
Imagine if the original plan was literally just, like, putting the little boy putting the finger in the dike to stop the dam from blowing. Like, literally, that's just been the one thing that's been preventing the downfall of Azeroth in reality itself.
Architected end? Fated? I mean, fate is something that is constantly referenced in the Shadowlands. Threads of fate. And there's quite a lot more, and we went into it in the past. Just think about a few things with Elisande, where Elisande was never able to actually see what we, the players, would do.
Right, it was Elisande.
Through all the time.
All right, I'm glad they hit upon that too.
Maybe says there's something special about us. I mean, in the Shadowlands, we're a prophesized savior. And it makes me wonder, just as the Matrix creates the One, are we, or Zovaal, in fact accounted for in a design that is not meant to last?
I hope not. That's kind of steering away so much from, like, the original fantasy of the game. Something that kind of I've hated since, like, kind of a little bit of Legion, where we were bestowed legendaries, that there's so much fantasy in the idea that we're just common adventurers going around accomplishing heroic deeds, of course, on our own right, but not accomplishing these because we were fated to do so. If we're, like, all just the chosen ones, all simultaneously at the same time, it feels bad. It doesn't feel great, It takes away from the heroicism of our characters a little bit, from the fantasy of it all. So if they're just doubling down on that and they're just going to keep going forward, and we're just going to continue to be, I say the fated, but, like, the prophesized, like the chosen ones going forward, we're changing the tone of what our characters are so much from the original design, which, I guess is kind of up to the devs to determine, the direction they want to go in this game. But for an old guard like me, I guess it's just a change I might have to get used to.
Or is there a true threat? Is the Crooked Serpent a more literal opposition to the first ones? Is there one who, like Melkor in Tolkien's work, was banished outside of time? And if Aman'Thul has this mastery over...
Is that Malcor again? He said, and Tolkien? So I don't know if it's Malcor inside of Tolkien's work, or is Malcor separate and that's a completely different work? Is this some author I don't know? Whatever, okay.
Time and can see future realities. How did he not see any of this coming? Did he not know that giving Nozdormu that knowledge would have consequences?
Right, I just thought in the beginning, yeah.
I mean, if the Titans are, as the art style suggests, near successors to the first ones, then does Aman'Thul know more than he's letting on? I mean...
I mean, the art style could suggest maybe that there, you know, some similarities between the first ones. But, and maybe I'm thinking too much, maybe in the sense of like lore and understanding how, in my understanding of how, you know, sentience works, that maybe just as beings of order, they just tend to trend towards aesthetics that they're used to. And maybe they just emulated or copied that aesthetic style from their creators, rather than the creators just saying, hey, listen, take on the mantle of what we've created, because it seems like these first ones are much more neutral than they are just giving a sort of preference. Or at least I would assume that first ones would probably have to be neutral towards all the different influences that they put in the universe, rather than showing favoritism. But I would assume from an order that they'd be a lot more regimented, strict, limited in the influences that they pull from.
Take the Devourers. They are of the Shadowlands' in between, and we're actually told that they were part of the design. They're there to keep balance until something changed. That thing changing caused them to consume, to corrupt, to obliterate. So what changed? If Zoval's betrayal was expected, as Farim worries, and just as, in the works of Tolkien, as Eru Iluvatar planned for Melkor's disharmony in the Song of Creation,
I don't know any of this.
The Devourer's turning would also have been expected. Something bad is coming. I don't know how many expansions away it is. Hopefully many expansions away, and rather than a big bad guy to just pop up and go boom.
Maybe a primer of what he just talked about would have been necessary for me. I mean, I can just research this later and come back.
This is something, you know, significantly more meaningful and also significantly more slow, right? I think we would all want that. But it's interesting to have these sort of looming interesting threats going on. Well, Mass Effect obviously didn't go in the greatest direction, but if you take some of the dark...
You know, based off of the rumors of how they completely changed the end of Mass Effect just to spite, you know, potential leaks or even just like fan theories that guessed correctly on how it was supposed to end. If that's true, that they changed all the ending just in spite of that, is such a horrifyingly bad decision. Like, so what if people guess the ending of it? If it's a good ending, it's a good ending. You know, who cares? Who cares if they get it right? Don't sacrifice the integrity of your story just so that you can hit some people with a bit of a twist at the end. You know, something that they just didn't see coming, go, oh my god. You know, because it really destroyed the whole story.
Towards the start of the Mass Effect franchise, which of course they pivoted away from, I think, in a less successful fashion. I think those things can be really interesting in a world. And I think it's very relevant for us because Nozdormu turns to Morozond at some point. Many of us, me included, think that he's going to turn in Dragonflight. Now, he's known his own death for a long time.
I didn't keep up too much with the alpha and beta of this. I haven't played any of them either. but I think the first raid is supposed, maybe not the first raid, but I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be like a whole raid tier dedicated towards the Time Ways.
So is it something else that makes him turn? And knowing his own death is merely
Will we witness that moment
Hard to
where
say.
he gives in?
But I think that this video...
I'd be so sad if our reality is a reality, one of the infinite realities in which he turns.
And I think that this is only going to become more relevant and more important as time flows on. As far as I'm concerned, the biggest risk here is that Blizzard have tied Zoval into a storyline that they established, that a very successful potential storyline, in fact, that they established with the end of Cataclysm, that they established with the Doomsayers, that they've hinted at in various different ways. But by putting Zoval there, to a lot of people, that really just, it's a real deal breaker. So let's hope that the Zoval-ish
it's a real deal breaker
fades away, and that we,
I can kind of understand that,
can slowly progress this using the more established.
I was just kind of thinking about the irony of it all, right? Imagine wrapping up like the storyline that everybody has grown up knowing, right? Wrapping up like as the title says, like the decade of storyline of lore that everyone like who's ever gotten interested in the World of Warcraft like lore has known and come to love, with such a failure of a character, but potentially starting a entirely new arc that might have been super successful with that same failure of a character. I think the irony of that is challenging cognitively.
Like Nozdormu, Morrizond, and the Infinite Dragonflight. They were all pretty cool. Okay, there you go. That's
it would require a lot
deep,
of
dark video
mental flexibility
big,
in order to just kind of
going on.
allow that to happen.
Even just now that I'm finished,
so maybe it might be right for them to kind of pivot away
the crazy
from
big battle at the very end. Army of the Light.
The jailer.
Anduin is involved. Potentially Illidan was involved in that whole, prophecy or child of shadow and light thing. I mean, is that this battle? Is it like is it Dagorath? The very end, the sort of final climactic battle. It's a storyline that Tolkien perhaps moved away from, but it exists in his notes, I believe, at the very least.
Wait, what? Child of Darkness and Light? That doesn't seem to make sense. I'm just trying to think of, like, Illidan, right? I just try to think for a second. Sorry, I promise this will be the last time I interrupt this because we're so close to the end. But Child of Darkness and Light and Illidan, I mean, Illidan was a twin, obviously, with Malfurion, I think. Did I get that right? I think they're twins. Whatever, or they might just be siblings. And that was obviously, Malfurion being a druid is more like life. And Illidan, yeah, he was influenced by the light towards the end, but definitely you could say he was influenced much more by the fel. A Child of Darkness and Light, though, if we're just talking about the influences, might actually be Erator the Redeemer, the son of Turalian and Alaria. Anyway.
Which is essentially when Melkor is able to go back through the Door of Night and the sort of, the final big thing happens.
That's it.
Maybe Blizzard are going to do something like that. Maybe it's a weird.
All right, I'll let the credits play just because obviously,
maybe the Titans
we're merely standing on the shoulders of these giants here.
I don't know. Let's not think about it too much. And
so, credits Bellular, go ahead and head to his channel, like his content, subscribe if you haven't. He has great material like this all the time. Not necessarily just on WoW. He has many channels that address things in just the gaming industry and how its manipulative practices, its victories, its defeats a lot of the time, But yeah, just great content. Go ahead and check them out. And thank you guys so much for watching. This has been NovemberMacwell. I hope to see you guys again real soon. I hope to see you again. I don't really post a lot. But I'm gonna try and do better about that. But all right, I'll catch you guys later. You guys have a great day. All right, thank you so much. Bye-bye.